All right, we're joined once again by one of our friends from the All NBA Podcast at AllCity, and of course from ESPN and a member of the Big Five Hall of Fame after a storied career at LaSalle, Tim Legler. How you doing, Tim?
What's up, fellas? I'm great, man. How are you? How was
Not
your holiday? Hope you had a good Thanksgiving.
Good so far. A
Awesome.
hectic next couple of weeks, but good so far.
Very good.
Gotta get that last minute shopping in before Christmas.
Last minute. I got to start my shopping early. All right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We don't need to get into that. That's my own problem. All right. So we have obviously Joel Embiid's been coming back from that right knee soreness, a little bit of up and down play. I guess overall, what have you seen from his play, and are you more or less concerned about how he can fit with this squad?
I don't think it's necessarily changed. It's equally concerned. It certainly hasn't been alleviated at all. If anything, it's been a slight uptick in more concerned because I'm just not sure at any point we're going to see the same Joel Embiid, right, that we've seen throughout the course of his career. And if that's the case, what exactly is he going to be for this team? Because he's going to still going to gobble up a lot of minutes. He's going to touch the ball a ton when he's on the floor. He's just not nearly the efficient player that he used to be. And like all the metrics across the board bear that out. Look, the shooting stuff, when you're in and out of the lineup and you're playing inconsistently and taking more nights off, and he's not doing, I'm sure, a whole lot on the off days. It's almost like that's what I kind of expect. He's missed his last 14 threes over the last 3 games. That's a pretty serious drought for a guy that's, got a really nice touch. But again, the in and out of the lineup is going to create some of that. I'm more concerned than anything about his rebound rate, his free throw rate, and like the defensive presence that he lacks, more so than the ball going in or not. Because I do think, just with more consistent time, appearing more frequently in a week and then in a course of a game, I think those numbers will start to have an uptick, even if it's more jump shots even than it used to be. I think those numbers will come up because he's that skilled of a shot maker. The rebound rate, he's rebounding. He's got 85 rebounds. 17 rebounds in his last 85 minutes. So that's a rebound every 5 minutes. You go around the league, you're going to find a lot of guards and small forwards rebounding at that rate. So that's a major concern. And then just his lack of mobility defensively and how, you knew he was back there in the past as an opponent. I don't think anybody really knows he's back there anymore. And it's really not a deterrent for teams to turn the corner on pick and roll or to, weak side slash, catch the ball if Embiid's on the floor. Like those were things that entered your mind because he was going to be a massive deterrent. Those things haven't been there. Those are the biggest concerns for me because that's the physical part of the game where your team rallies around that stuff and you build a winning culture around that stuff. The shot making, there's other guys on this team that can make shots on nights he doesn't. How do you make up for a guy like that that's not rebounding the way that he used to, not a defensive presence as your backline anchor the way that he was? Those, to me, are much more significant issues.
To that point, Tim, I guess if the mobility doesn't come back, and even if it comes back a little bit, but he's nowhere near peak Joel Embiid, what can they do in terms of the scheme or the personnel around him in order to try to maximize, get that value out of him on offense, but have a playable enough defense that this is a team that can, win a playoff series or even multiple playoff series?
Look, this isn't a cop-out answer, but there is no answer because here's the problem that now in this league, the way it looks every night, basically the type of guys that he has to match up with are going to be either those athletic fives that are screen, dive, lob threats. That's a problem for him right now to get out, show on the guard, and then turn it backpedal with a guy like a Daniel Gafford or whoever, name one, right? Anybody. And there's not every team has guys like that, but enough have guys like that. That's a problem for Joel Embiid, and he used to be able to make those plays. Hard hedge on the guard, and then turn one step, and then jump, elevate, and he could deflect a lob, or he was even enough for a presence. They wouldn't even throw that. Now, that's a problematic move for his body to show it all on a guard and then turn and retreat to the rim. So that's one type of player he has to guard. Then you got the pick and pop guys, the guys that can screen, step out, and knock down three-point shots. There are more of those than lob threats anymore in the NBA. That's a problem for Embiid to show and get back because he just doesn't move from point A to point B the way that he used to. So now that's a difficult assignment. The one type of player that there's very few of in this league are the guys that can catch the ball with their back to the basket and actually do work on somebody in the post. There's not a lot of those guys in the league at all. And those guys give everybody fits. Doesn't really matter. But actually, that would probably be the best matchup now for Embiid.
Yeah.
Guarding guys that are like legitimate back to the basket, low post players where he can use his strength and his size. He doesn't have to cover ground. So, look, there's no great answer for it. What you hope is his offense picks up to the extent that it's overshadowing what you're watching on the other end. That's not the case right now. Because he's so limited defensively, now you are paying more attention to these nights, sub 40% shooting nights when he's not getting to the line a ton. Those are the nights now that are glaring because he's not giving you the other stuff. So what you hope is the offense comes around to the point it masks some of those things because there's not a great answer. I don't think zone's the answer because zone can actually make you more lethargic and listless as a big that's already lacking mobility. I think that would be a porous zone if they threw that out there when he's on the floor. So I'm sorry to tell you, man, there's not a great answer for a guy that looks like he's lost a lot of his explosiveness.
It feels like for a decade, we debated how they could just not die when Joel Embiid wasn't on the floor, and they never really had a great answer for that. I feel like now we're doing a little bit of the same with Tyrese, where when he's off the floor, it's like, all right, how do you tread water during those 4-minute stints that he needs to catch a break? We've seen, McCain come back, and I'm sure we'll get to him in a second. He's run some of the offense. VJ's run some of the offense. I guess overall, how would you dole out those minutes and responsibilities? And also, how big of an adjustment do you think it is for someone like VJ, who is mostly off ball at Baylor, to come in and try to run an offense almost right from the jump?
Well, some of it, I think, is, listen, those are the guys that have to do it because just look at your roster. Who else is it going to be? It's going to be, Quentin Grimes with the ball in his hands, VJ with the ball in his hands, Jared McCain. And look, Jared McCain, everybody needs to be patient with Jared McCain. I tore 3 ligaments in my knee at the same time, ACL included. And I can just tell you, I came back, was playing 9 to 10 months later with a brace on my knee. It took me a whole nother probably 8 to 10 months after I came back and started playing before I felt normal on the court. Because psychologically, you're dealing with, you don't want to land in traffic. So you're not just playing free. You're thinking about your body movements. For a basketball player, that's very difficult to be efficient. It's going to take time with Jared McCain. He's going to get back, I'm confident. But it's going to be a while. It might not be until after the All-Star break when you start to see a little bit more consistent rhythm. But he's another guy you can put the ball in his hands. I think strategically, one of the things that you can look at is, because none of those guys are like elite, like ball screen operators, where you're a dual threat, right? Get downhill, get to 3, or make a play for somebody. They do enough that mostly as scorers, all 3 of those guys, that you have to guard them, but you're not as worried about them breaking down your defense. That's going to continue to be the case because I don't think any of those guys are going to add that right in front of your eyes as the season goes. So strategically, maybe you find opportunities when the opponent does not have their best on-ball pressure lineup on the floor, that's a good time maybe to give Maxey a little bit more of a blow. So those guys are operating against those second-tier type ball defenders. That gives them a little bit more space, freedom, comfortability with their handle, because none of those guys are super escapable with their handle, that they can navigate any situation against any type of defender. That might be something that you would look at, but it is what it is, barring some sort of a move that they make to bring a guy in that's a more accomplished ball screen operator. It's kind of by committee when Maxey's off the floor.
So to that point, Tim, between Joel in and out of the lineup, injuries to other guys, bringing along these young players, how would you evaluate the job that Nick Nurse has done setting up this team this season? And they're 13-10 as we speak right now. I guess, how do you think the team or maybe the fans should feel about where they're at in the East as well?
I think you got to be pretty grateful that you have Nick Nurse, in my opinion. I think this is one of the sharpest minds in the game. Look at the hand he's been dealt. I mean, I made jokes all last year, and I saw Nick a couple times last year. We did Sixers games. I would interview him before the game, and I told him, when you go to Basketball Reference, which we all do, and you pull up history of the Philadelphia 76ers organization year by year, there was going to be nothing in the line for last year. It's like the season that didn't exist, right? It disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle because he didn't have any chance last year with all those injuries. So now you look at this year, right? So you come into the season mid-September, everybody's like, hey, I was saying, listen, they have the widest ceiling to floor gap if depending how things go, of any team in the NBA, without question, Paul George and Embiid are healthy and look normal, contender. They aren't lottery. Like that's the gap. So to think about, they looked healthy mid-September. So I was kind of hopeful. And then obviously that hasn't been the case. So you look at with the hand he's been dealt, limited availability for Paul George and Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid does not look close to the same player when he has been out there. Jared McCain coming back from a major injury, trying to incorporate him back into the lineup, counting big time on a rookie for your scoring punch. Like all of those things added up. Sitting here at 13-10, if you had told me the script for this season based on who was available and also how those guys would look when they were available, and you told me that before opening night, I would have said there's no chance this team is 13-10 at 23 games into the season. And I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit for that.
Well, Tim, by about January of last year, we were wearing tank helmets on the show. So I really wish we could wipe that memory from our collective conscience, but we can't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In that vein, they're coming up on December 15th. December 15th is a point where a lot of players can become eligible to be traded. I think at times we can make too much of that deadline because transactions usually don't happen. But even still, like looking at where the Sixers are and also the uncertainty of what they have, is it feasible to actually try to be buyers given the uncertainty with Joel? And if you are, what's kind of like the skill set or position you think they should target?
Yeah, it's awfully tough. I mean, listen, let's I don't even know if they would be in the market to move Embiid or Paul George. That's not going to happen based on the contracts, based on their physical limitations, the amount of time they missed. It's just not feasible to think that. So, who would even be likely if you're trying to improve your roster? Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond are the two names that come up because they're on, friendly numbers and expiring contracts. And Kelly Oubre, to me, he's got a lot of upside to his game and plugging him in and being a rotational player for some team. But I just don't know what teams are willing to give up and as a fit what the Sixers would need. They clearly need another ball handler, like I just mentioned, someone that's really comfortable in running ball screen. But look, if you got a guy that's an accomplished ball screen operator in this league, that's a dual threat, I got news for you. Those guys typically aren't being moved. So I don't know, what level you're going to get. You could get a ball security type guy, probably doesn't turn it over, gets guys involved, but doesn't have a lot of scoring pop. You could probably find a guy like that out there. They also need some front court depth. And I think a little bit, look, Adem Bona is a guy that gives them the type of athleticism and bounce, and he does really good job protecting the rim and the amount of time that he plays, but he gives you absolutely nothing offensively. So is there a viable option out there to give him a little bit more added athleticism defensively at the rim that gives you just a little bit more of a threat offensively? Maybe that's something to look at. Front court depth, an additional ball handler. But here's the thing too, the cap, the luxury tax implications of the cap, that also plays into it with this.
Oh, don't get Derek started on that one, Tim. That's a sore subject.
It's the reality. And look, I'm with him. I hate it when that comes up and everybody starts talking about, the aprons, and I'm thinking like the aprons. Oh, that's what I put on to cook my holiday roast. I mean, I don't know, all that talk. It's very complicated stuff, but it always comes down back to the same thing. Are you willing to go into the tax or aren't you? And that's kind of where every team has to make that determination. The situation they're in right now is not an easy one because they've got star names making max money that are not star players every night for you anymore. That's a very difficult spot to be in, combined with some really young, nice talent that you have. That's a really weird mix, which again is a reason I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit because that's just not a typical makeup of a roster. Either you have star guys and you're going for it, and I don't know that they can with the way some of these guys look, or you have like these really young team that you're a couple years away, you're accumulating assets, and it'll come down the road. They're in between that. They've got young guys that you need to play now. You've got these vets making a ton of money that you need more out of, but they're not really a contending team because of the way those guys look. So it's a tough road for them to navigate.
And I think that's kind of exactly it, Tim, because then also in the middle of all that, you have Tyrese Maxey playing at an all NBA level. And on the one hand, you say, boy, we got to get this guy some help that can be out there every night, that's prepared to try to win right now. And on the other hand, you just drafted VJ, who's 20 years old. You have McCain, who's got a long runway in front of him. And you say you don't want to short circuit things, knowing that these guys are kind of the future of the team. And it's just a fine line to walk to me. So I feel like there's a lot of tough decision making ahead for these guys.
Well, it is tough. And even think about the guys like Edgecombe, McCain eventually when he goes like because even the opportunity McCain got last year when he had that incredible 5-week stretch, starting in early November, lasting almost until he got hurt in mid-December. Like a lot of those nights, they didn't have full complement of players.
Yeah.
So he was able to catch it, go, touches, shots, minutes, flow, rhythm, confidence, but they were losing. I think they were 3-11 in games he got double figures. So it's a totally different thing. It allows for personal growth. You got a guy like Edgecombe, on the team now. The difference is though, some nights those guys aren't there. He's a totally different role, different freedom. And then there's other nights when those guys are out there. Now he becomes more deferential to everybody. And so the growth is a little bit stunted. And the problem with that is the guys that he's deferring to are not capable of being efficient players. So it's a tough spot, even for McCain. I said it's going to take time physically, mentally. It's also going to take time from a rhythm standpoint because it doesn't look the same every night for his opportunities based on who's playing. So it's very difficult to pull off what they're trying to pull off with Embiid. To have a guy that's got that kind of usage rate, that dominant with the ball, but he's not playing every night. And even on the nights he is playing and you're running things through him, he's not nearly the player he was. That's just very difficult to succeed. And so to me, it's almost miraculous that they're 13-10. And it speaks directly to how sensational Tyrese Maxey has been. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's his team. It's his team now. And so that's why they're 13-10 is primarily because of how incredible that guy has been. And the rest of it is just going to be a night by night thing. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for Sixers fans to wrap their head around a lot of nights because it's not the same product you're watching.
Yeah. All right. Last one here from me, Tim. We have the fourth member of that guard rotation, a guy in Quentin Grimes who, earlier in his career with Dallas was mostly an off-ball role player. Last year had a huge usage rate as everybody else was injured. And this year has sort of like switched between both of those roles. I guess, how do you think he's handled, the change in assignments given lineup constructions and night-to-night availability? And how do you think he's fit in?
I think, look, he first of all, he shocked me last year. He blew his ceiling as an NBA player. It's just completely apart. He was a much more accomplished scorer than I thought he could be at the NBA level. I liked his game. I thought he was going to be more of like that supplemental role player in your rotation type guy or a sixth man that could come in and give you some punch. He's better than that. And I think he's handled it well. All these guys have handled it as best they can because like I said, it's really unusual to have this collection of young guys like on the perimeter that can really score with Maxey, Edgecombe, who I think will get there. And he came out of the gate, obviously just caught everybody, set the world on fire. And it's been hard to live up to what he did early this season. Grimes, another guy like that. It's tough when some nights you don't have Embiid. The pace of the game looks totally different. Where the ball goes, anticipating your next touch to attack. It's a lot different when Embiid's on the floor. So look, they found a player. I mean, Grimes is a legitimate scorer in this league. And he's handled it about as well as you can. None of this is easy for any of those guys. And here they are. And we'll see. This is probably similar to what the season is going to be like, unless one of those guys completely shuts it down. And then you can make up your mind what it's going to look like going from there. But right now, this is what they are, man. And the East look is still pretty wide open. I don't think there's two or three teams that you look at and go, okay, no one's on that level. I expected the Cavs to be there. They're not. The Knicks right now, to me, and Detroit, clearly the two best teams in the Eastern Conference. But like if you're the Sixers, you go, hey, we got everybody healthy and Embiid finds his rhythm late in the season. We're going to be in good shape. Just will that happen? That's the thing. I'm starting to get more pessimistic that we'll see that.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the sentiment from a lot of people right now. Tim, always a pleasure to talk to you, pick your brain a little bit. You were telling us before we got on live here, you got a bit of a lull here in the
man. So like
schedule.
We got new partners in Amazon and NBC, so they took 20 games from us, and most of those are here early in the year, which means I was calling games steadily until Thanksgiving Eve. We called our last game, and then my group with Mike Breen and Richard Jefferson and myself, we're off until Christmas. So it's a long break, man. I'm still watching games. I'm doing my pods. I'm doing all this kind of stuff. So I'm still in the loop, but yeah, sitting down and actually calling a game. The next time you'll see me is going to be Christmas night, Houston at the Lakers. We've got a really good game, 8:00 Eastern that night. So I'm looking forward to that.
That will be a good one. We look forward to seeing you, hearing you. And looking forward to you getting back out there, but I'm sure you're enjoying some rest and some downtime with the family right now.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm taking advantage of that. It's just very rare this time of the year that I'm home this much. They're probably actually begging me to get back to work at this point. They want to get me out of the house, I'm sure.
A sentiment I think both of the other two panelists on this pod have had their families expressed to them as well. Well, Tim, thank you once again for giving us a little bit of your time. Enjoy your little bit of downtime. I hope the family has a wonderful holiday season, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
No doubt. Same to you guys. Take care.